Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the rest of your life. Well, also, and welcome to the second day of RPG with DBJ, because today we are talking constructs. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about it all week. We take one subject, be constructs in tabletop RPGs, and we take that and kind of cut it up, dissect it a little bit, deep dive into it all week long on a different subject. Today is Discord Tuesday. Generally, it's kind of like a grab bag, and we kind of talk about maybe mechanics and some logistics in using whatever subject we're talking about. So yesterday was Monster Monday, and we talked about using constructs in our, whether they're like golems, and we're kind of fading in and out between science fiction and fantasy and putting it all together. I did want to bring up that Tackleberry80 posted a little video in the DBJ Discord, and there's a little clip from the Witcher 2 game, how the Witcher finagles having a talk with a guardian golem made out of like this harsh, sharpened, spiky stone that to get the name word, the command word to shut him down. And so it's a cute little clip. And so today, I think what we're going to talk about, according to the title, are like Inanimates, Immunities, and Invulnerabilities. And to talk about how they're applied in the game, both like game-wise, and then talk about how we can use them, and even talk about some vulnerabilities involved in using them. So one thing I want to bring up, it is, well, I always bring up 1,000 things, but one of the things is that inanimate beings, golems, especially if you are playing in a game where they can actually be a choice by the player characters, or they're kind of ubiquitous, they're everywhere, much like Eberron and the Warforged. I believe there is Kobold Press has created the Gear Forged at one point, and there's many other variations, homebrews and such. One of the things that comes about being like an android or artificial being is that it's the top three things, right? No need to eat, sleep, no need to rest. And while pretty easy to write down, based on the setting and some of the impact of that, I know many players and game masters think in their heads, like, as simple as that statement may be, how dramatic that can affect their setting in their world. Now, of course, we have ways to rationalize or even shoehorn in the idea that they very much need to eat, sleep, and rest, right? You can say that in a sci-fi setting that an android or a synth morph or what have you needs to power down, right? It can be an android that just, yeah, sure, I can go for 3 months without sleeping and needing to eat or rest, but my systems will overheat, or I have a regenerative battery, or I need some kind of like dilithium crystal or something deposited into my systems every now and again, So there is the idea of needing to power down, maybe to decompile or defragment or whatever. You can have that kind of and that is used very much. Yeah, need to defrag the hard drive. Yeah, dead man, exactly. Lindell says need to put short-term memory into long-term. Exactly. So we can say, sure, you don't need to traditionally eat and sleep like a human being, but yeah, you do need to power down your systems. There may even be a need for, in a medieval setting, that a golem of sorts may need to like the short-term, long-term memory. Maybe they actually internally need to literally write it down, like in script-wise or something, or much like a wizard has to consult their spell book, you could make it like a meditative state, or to there may be a Hive link to maybe a massive library somewhere, and it has to upload all of its experiences to this place temporarily. I mean, on a daily basis or something. So sure, you could actually do it that way. You may even you could go the Wizard of Oz route, and the golems literally need to have squirt a little oil into the joints, add a little bit of a lubricant into the neck and the back and everything, just to keep it going. Maybe even have a I need to replace or tighten some of my parts. Yep. or Lundell says, or get the next day's directives. Exactly. So yes, logically, I know, and we all know that a mechanical being isn't a human being, so it can work forever, sure, but maybe according to, much like driving an automobile or running a computer, at some point, there is overheating. It does need maintenance and such, and so you could instill in your world that ability. Now, the eating and drinking portion of it, again, whether it needs to absorb solar energy, or maybe it does need to eat certain things, turning it into internal mechanical replacement parts. Now it doesn't need to be food. Maybe it's some type of concoction, like a liquid that it applies into its system, or it could be it opens up a little hatch in its chest and it deposits iron ore or something of that nature. Like, you could get that as well. Tesla Ranger says bending metal creates heat due to friction. So maybe an iron golem has to stop moving for some period to radiate that heat away, or it will eventually melt. I'm liking that. I like that a lot. I mean, I believe the iron golem, it has some form of internal heat attached to it, at least the stat block does. So I definitely agree with that as well. I mean, I could imagine the iron golem running around and doing its thing, and there might even be controllers like, whoa, you're gonna have to sit off in the corner, because he starts getting like red hot and whatnot. Dead Man says, like the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Liddell says, if there is intake, there has to be outtake. Yes, rust. Oh, yeah. Got a little Brillo pad, scraping away the rust or something, or applying some sort of sealant to keep the rust away. So maybe even replacing a part or two with a wrench, with the gnome in the group, like knocking him on the head, like, hey buddy, you need to replace that little plate on your back there. And it's like, oh, thanks a lot for that. It's gonna take me a little while, but sure, do it during the short rest. So I think some of that would actually be kind of cool and kind of fun, really. Even watching the player open up their chest and take little bits and pieces out of them that might themselves be small, intricately designed mechanical parts, like a watchmaker, and taking the gears out and putting new gears in and things like that. I could see that. Polaris, the stainless steel golem, just doesn't have the same ring to it. Yeah, you're right. It's like, no, you're working perfectly. Now, of course, as Dead Man said yesterday, there's a ton of golems you can find made out of different materials, and I think it kind of behooves us to add in unique ones into our world, whether they are carved out of a type of crystal, or in the future created by like some extruded plastics or things. Maybe golems that were created by tribalists. A grease golem. I don't know how you would. Well, okay. Golems made out of things that aren't solid, like liquids and gases and things. I suppose you could. The differences between, say, an elemental and a golem isn't much. Someone can say, well, you summon an elemental and you construct a golem, but stat block wise, erasing their origins, I could see both being with each other. Like, I could imagine in the elemental plane of Earth that a clay stone and iron golem would just be clay, stone, and iron that happens to be animated, and the other way around, right? Someone can construct an intricately designed iron golem, and then a druidic cult could, hack off a bunch of pieces of stone from a mountainside, and that just happens to be the stat block for an elemental, but it's a golem unto itself. Yeah, Liddell says, okay, that's just pudding. My bad. Yeah. Now, now you know me. I love Russian stacking creatures. So you could putting a pudding pudding ooze jelly, uh, gelatin, what's any of those things inside of a golem, I think is a pretty badass thing to do. Someone's like, oh, let me step up. I'm gonna cut its head off. I could do 100 and some points damage, hack the head off, and then the ooze comes out of it. And they're like, I'm not gonna hit this again with my axe. You guys handle this thing, right? So, but other things that come with golems, kind of hinted upon the sleep thing and the eating, eating and drinking, but intrinsically, an artificial being is immune to certain things like diseases, poisons. Um, uh, some would say that it borders on immunities to mental intrusion, depending on your setting. But I will say that depending on the game that we're playing, uh, some of those so-called immunities could just be in the background, right? For example, golems living forever, having an eternal life, really doesn't have much impact in terms of a game such as Dungeons and Dragons, right? Hey Vince, what's going on? Pelor says pudding is such a terrible name for a monster. I don't know. Most people like pudding. I'm not really a chocolate pudding fan, but I used to like rice pudding. But wow, cool, free day, sweet. Dead Man put in the Discord. Maze, the gunner from Borderlands 3, has a mech she can call on, and we didn't even talk about familiars as constructs and golems. They kind of hint upon that when designing, say, a gnome, and gnomes having their little trinkets and things around them. But I think it would make a lot of sense to have a character who might have a mechanical familiar as like a drone-ish kind of thing, or it could even have its own little personality as opposed to a living being. But yeah. I don't know what you mean. Pudding's delicious. I like to eat dead monsters. Once they're in a pudding form, I'm not sure. I suppose eating it is not. I don't think that's the worst thing if you've killed a monster and reduced it to pudding. I don't think that's the worst part of that statement. Now, other immunities that people may balk at would be, of course, like I said, their age. Now, we brought up rust, right? So maybe golems in your world or androids, whatever, really don't live forever. They will rust and corrode over time if not maintained. So maybe living eternally isn't a thing. But there's other little complications that are involved with artificial beings too, that you may or may not want to pull on, like, do they float? Do they breathe? Do they require oxygen? What kind of manual dexterity do they have? Talking about the Iron Golem, do they give off heat, or are they hot or cold when it comes to thermal imaging? How much sound do they make? Along with their weight, when you walk on, let's say you're climbing up a mountain and there's like rocky ledges and they're about to crumble, or you're down in a deep dark dungeon and you have rocks overhead about to fall on you or something. Like, would their weight punch through a frozen lake before, say, the other PCs that are lighter weight? I mean, I think those are the kind of things that are fun to play with, although you might want to talk about whether you're going to actually use those details in like a session zero, probably. Um, uh, Vince says the character I played the longest time was a golem builder, golem wizard. It was super fun. He had a mechanical familiar. Yeah, I would definitely that are available and make them mechanical. Like what's a popular one, and just make up, and it has like I don't know, hummingbird wings or something, and a little maybe a little proboscis that can stab things and poison them or something. That'd be kind of cool. Deadman says, or is it drinking dead monsters? But listen, but by the time you're making slushies out of monsters, I don't think drinking them is the bad thing. I think PCs that are throwing them into a ninja slushy maker, I think is the worst part. Oh man, yeah. I, I, I Pelor says I'd eat it back. Just watch. Yeah. What, you think you're gonna eat me? I'm gonna eat you. Oh man, Tesla Rager. When dyed pink, a gelatinous cube becomes the Turkish delight that eats you. So some might want to add some, say, vodka to a gelatinous cube, kind of make a little Jello shots or something. Although you'd only enjoy it once, but sure. Although I always wonder. I know the gelatinous cube is silly and kind of ridiculous, but I always wonder why. Like, it doesn't need to be a cube. It's gelatin. Can't you just make a mold and make it the shape that you want it to? Oh man. Yeah, Vince goes on to talk about his character. His goal was making the perfect golem, and he was not convinced this was impossible. I thought a lot about how they work and what weaknesses they have. My character once defeated an iron golem without casting spells, just by using his knowledge and a crossbow. See, and here's the thing that I love about golems and constructs, and depending on how mindless you want them to be, whether they are independent agents, whether they have limited agency, they could be much like the clip that was posted in Discord about um, the golem and the Witcher getting around the golem by tricking them. I suppose you could have a golem with a high level of understanding what it is without having any agency to make its own decisions. In other words, it could be speaking for its master without it having the ability to alter its desires. So finding command words, finding keys that shut things on and off. The 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 classic Jason and the Argonauts, right? The Iron Golem, and turning the knob on its heel that releases all of the molten fluid inside of it. Making it turn back into a statue. Um, Maybe the mindless statues can walk towards you, and someone's like, I'm going to make an illusion of me standing 10 feet away from the cliff and have them walk towards me and walk off the cliff or something of that nature. So that's figuring out ways around the problem, I think, can allow your players to be a lot more creative in terms of, especially if they don't have the ability to just knock heads and open up a can of whoop, right? It could be them convincing them to go maybe down a narrow corridor and trapping them there, or finding the command word, making them create their own demise by having them, like the Iron Golem, smashing his fists against the walls and causing the ceiling to collapse or something like that, or even making them fall into their own uh, gelatinous pits of fluid or something like that, maybe fall into pools of acid, or even trapping them inside of cages or whatever is available at that time. Plur says, I would have thought it would be it would be a gelatinous hemisphere. True. Sliding around on the ground and stuff. Yeah. Vince says this was a role playing server in Neverwinter Nights. Oh man, yeah, and the thing about playing having a golem or playing a golem, of course, is it's kind of what we're talking about now, right? Um, it depending on the game, we have to consider how much of an additional how much it's the work and effort that it creates and allows the players to overcome versus the limitations that it has, right? A PC wizard with a golem, as an attendant of sorts, depending on the level of the game, third level, fifth level, you're going, that kind of, I don't see it. 20th level, it's not really a big deal. I mean, characters at like 16th to 20th level, they're knocking golems and they're taking them out and snapping their fingers. So it's not really a big deal at that point. But yes, he definitely considering them. And of course, depending on how popular, how ubiquitous are they in the game. I mean, if is this a one-off? Is there one PC that has one golem walking around your world wreaking havoc? Or is it a PC that has a golem in a world where every city's got hundreds of them, or they just happen to be a thing that exists in the world and that doesn't really make them that much special? Talos, that was the giant statue in Talos, the death of Talos in the Jason of the Argonauts movie. I think that was back in the mid 60s, early 70s movie came out. Anyway, Vince says, I defeated the Iron Golem by loosening the screws on the legs before he started moving. When he tried to get upright again, I shot an explosive arrow at his head, so he fell into a pool. Yes, and that's the thing. Of course, maybe some golems can be just as they are constructed. They could be destructed. I would say maybe a stone golem, allow a dwarven character with stone cunning in their experiences with stones. 1963, yeah, it was before digital effects, man. That it was before that heyday. They had to do something. I'm sure if I look back at it now, I'm going, those effects are cheesy, but at the time it was pretty amazing. So, and the whole idea of Jason and the Argonauts, I think, is still an amazing story anyway. So who the hell cares, man? I think it was awesome. And especially at that time as a kid, I was just like, oh, Saturday mornings and afternoons watching those movies. It's great. Pillar says, I just went off thinking about the cave trolls opening the gates of Mordor, swap them for golems. I mean, who's to say that they wouldn't be walking around and being used and abused by the goblins that live in the caves and have altered their memories, or had them under their control, which of course you definitely could have, say, a staff or a rod that controls their actions as well. The goblins or goblinoids that moved into the ancient keep that now have control over the golems now have the rod that controls them, or rod, tiara, helm, medallion, so on and so forth, gauntlet or whatever. And maybe that's what controls them. And of course, if you want to limit it and not have the players like, oh, can I steal the rod and get control of the Iron Golem? Maybe they're not usable outside of the keep. Maybe both the golem and the rod need to be recharged every fortnight or something, or it needs to be recharged under the setting sun, or placed back into its chamber to be, doing what we talked about before, the recompiling information or getting new instructions and stuff. So you could control it that way. Also, who's to say in your world that the iron golems that help defend the lair of the deep gnomes, or the Dwygar, or the dwarves or something, periodically doesn't have to have its head pulled off and some more molten metals or lava poured down the inside of it, right? It's a possibility that there are sculptors that need to apply certain types of plasters or carvings to the stone creatures. And talking about aging, maybe stone and clay starts to break apart after a while. And when the PCs get there, they're like, why are there all these broken statues everywhere? There could even be a relationship between a Medusa and some other creator or something. The Medusa was once the princess, and the prince ran away with her and wanted to carve for her a statue that would be of her likeness and her beauty, but instead she's turned others into great works of art that are able to now come to life or something. That'd be kind of a cool, strange, weird relationship if you could pull that off in a game. Uh, Vince says one big talking point was always, how do you control a golem? Can you reprogram a golem that has no master anymore? How would that work? And I think that's the greatest part of it. Like, can you reprogram it? A sport, high tech, right? We hackers somehow tackling the golem or running around its back or into its head and removing the plate where you get its programming chip and remove it. That's always a possibility as well. Maybe some of the players have to distract it or grapple it or something. Now for medieval or for Dungeons and Dragons, you're talking magic. It could be reading papers from the big thick tome that helped create it in the first place, and getting to flipping to the page where you're able to read aloud the rituals and deactivate it at some point. In again, golems and constructs tend to be puzzle creatures. Sure, you can go and smash it with your hammer, or you could be use another technique and find the blueprints that are able to dismantle it, or maybe there's a rack of tools that the golems use to fix them, and someone's like, wait a minute, if the tools build them, maybe we can use the wrenches and other strange tools to take apart their arms and legs or something, right? That'd be kind of a cool idea. Yeah, Vince says, yeah, effects usually don't age well, but stop motion has its fans. They're still making movies that way. They're actually using digital technology to mimic the effects of stop motion, which is kind of strange, but kind of cool throwback. And yes, stop motion I made a stop motion movie when I was younger. I wanted to get into movie making for a short period of my life, and stop motion is you make the figures and you move them a little bit. I used Hot Wheels cars and that kind of thing, but you have to move them, and so many frames in a camera dictate how fast and slow it moves for stop motion. It can be pretty intricate. So stop motion has it is a skill unto itself, which is kind of cool. Vin says you could make a whole society where every object is a golem or animated object. A door with a talking head, stairs that move the person standing on top of it. Transportation is just horse golems, etc. I absolutely agree with you, dude. I could imagine there being throne room chairs that just have legs on the bottom of them, or like you said, there could just be mechanical horses that pull massive heavy weights around the city. Like you said, doors that open and close upon command with asking who they are, and people giving their I am the guardian of the thing, whatever. I'm a soldier, I'm a wizard, I'm of the faith or something of that nature. And the door's like, oh, I know who you are. I recognize your voice. Come on in, and that could be an interesting way for players to navigate around a city that has that kind of magic. You can't pick the locks, but you might have to mimic voices or appearances or find command words or steal a medallion or a rod that you hold up in front of these locked areas to get into and out of those areas, especially like you said, a set of stairs that's probably completely flat that moves like an escalator up or down. And if you don't give the command word, it's just it could just be, well, it could be a slope, or it could rise out of the floor or something like that. There could even be elevators of sorts, just a platform that rises and lowers out of the ceiling, that kind of thing. So yeah. Pelor says some of the Jewish mythology has you placing a note in their mouth, and you can get very, I'm going to say, fairy tale-ish or wives' tale-ish. So it may not be as sorry, it may not be as apparent as to how to control them. So it could be coins, or it could be tattoos. They could be um, certain times of day. They're able to get new instructions. Maybe there are ways for them to certain people are dressed, like holy symbols may be a thing worn around the neck, and maybe one of the players is a cleric, and all of a sudden the golem stops before drawing its sword and slashing the cleric, and it stops and kneels down in front of the cleric, and the cleric's like, "Ooh, this is kind of cool," But there's also the bad part of that is maybe they report to their superiors. PCs sneak into the keep, but that doesn't stop the golems or the guards or magi that control the golems. Like, they're behaving badly. What's going on? They could be sending those images to like a crystal ball, and there could be a security force that's looking at the crystal ball like, I don't recognize them, but they got past the golems. Go send some emissaries to see who these individuals are, right? Yeah, Vince says that is the original story, and also says they still do real stop motion, as far as I know. Yeah, I believe you are correct. There are still people doing real stop motion, but there are also something in Gromit movies, I believe, were created using digital technology to mimic the effects of stop motion, I believe. Yeah. Most of them are in fact not CG. Weirdly enough, Wallace and Gromit. That's it. Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Puller, Tesla, man. Yes, Wallace and Gromit movies. I'm gonna say I'm sure there's a way to find out. I'm gonna say at least a few of the maybe 2 or 3 recent Wallace and Gromit movies were made using CGI. So somebody find that out for me, because I'm usually wrong on these things, but I swear I heard that. Cheese. Yeah. So, okay. So we have our immunities. We have our, how can we say, we have our like immunities and invulnerabilities. Yes, in the game we do have stat blocks in Dungeons and Dragons. There's other games that have androids and such, and rules for using like mechanical beings and such. So depending on how much you're going to use disease and poisons and radiation, or aging effects in your game, will depend on how much more powerful they are in your world. Frankly, the way Dungeons and Dragons is designed, they aren't really that much more powerful than any other PC. I mean, sure, poison may not be a thing that's, there are a lot of creatures that cause poison damage, but poison resistances and immunities are very common. The no sleeping and eating thing, like we said, you can just modulate that and say, well, you just do a different version of it. The immunity to disease thing is not a big deal. Most games don't involve players catching diseases. Now, again, talking about the swimming thing, do they float? How are they heavy? Are they can other senses detect them, like detect magic? Would they just be like a big giant flare for creatures that detect magic, or have a high sense of hearing, or scent even? Thermal vision wise, does an iron golem show up as a big red flare? That kind of thing. I mean, how dangerous would how upsetting would it be for a wizard walking around with their powerful iron golem to meet a rust monster, right? They'd back the hell off. So, well, even there's even the idea of, how do inanimate objects given sentience heal in your world? Do you have to replace the parts? Do they heal magically? Is it like nanotech? Does a cleric's healing laying on, or paladin's laying on of hands, does that work for PCs? And if so, how does it narratively appear in your world, and then mechanically, is there any modification to it? Um, if they're a player character, you're going to say, well, I don't want to nerf them, so yeah, a cleric can heal them, but how does it look and such? Now, mind you, there isn't any. There's not very much simulationist in Dungeons and Dragons anyway. People don't bleed, they don't get broken bones unless you insert that in there. So yeah. Uh, uh, Plura says, well, South Park is entirely digital, but done to try and emulate the original paper cut animation. The slight head twitches, for example. Yeah, exactly. Vince says they use CGI rabbits in the last Wallet and Gromit movie. Yep. Yep. But most things are still non-CGI. Well, I thought, I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken. Vince says some effects, particularly the fire, smoke, and floating bunnies in The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, proved impossible to create in stop motion and were rendered by computer animation, like basically using a combination. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Vince says I like to use a template for my golem builder, and it was called an effigy. I like to make an ankhead effigy to dig tunnels super fast. So Dead Man talked about Wallace and Gromit. Films are shot using the stop motion animation technique. After detailed story building, boarding, set, and plastine model construction, the films are shot one frame at a time. I'm so wrong. Moving the models of the characters slightly to give the impression of movement in the final film. Damn. Because the second of film, constitute 24 separate frames. Even a short half-hour film like A Close Shave takes a great deal of time to animate. Yeah, it takes a while, and you better know what you're doing. It takes a lot of editing afterwards by just hitting, like, you got to do 24 frames a second. Yeah. Wow. Thank you very much for that, sir. Thank you. Yeah, that's a very difficult thing. Which, Vince says ankhead effigy, giant insects to ride. Yeah, giant wasps or bees. They can even hover and fly super fast while being super cheap to create. I can see that hummingbirds probably be in that range. There was a mechanical owl in the original Clash of the Titans movie. But all right, so we have ourselves some mechanical beings. We kind of know some of their immunities, and we have to consider those. There are some limitations, and we kind of have to consider some of those. But again, reflecting back to what we talked about Monday in Monster Monday, golems are very interesting because they always bring up the who, what, where, when, how, and why in your world, and who created them. How were they created? Why do they exist in the first place? Why are they thinking the way they are? Can you communicate with them? How long have they been around? Are they only a few years old, or are they ancient? Are they somewhere in between? Is this a form of immortality for members of the population? Like we talked about, soldiers' spirits being put into the golems. And again, me, the Russian stacking dolls, like you could put ghosts and other spirits inside of golems, and that may be the way that they are animated in the first place. You could even foreshadow a city with a number of statues in alcoves, and over time, for whatever purposes, dangers or things like that, maybe these visual spirits, ghost in a machine, yeah, definitely. These ghosts inhabit the golems, and the PCs destroy the golems, and the ghosts just fly out of one golem, go into another golem, and they do a face palm like, don't. How many statues are there? One of the PCs is like, I counted 138. They're like, oh man, we're not getting out of here at all. As the ghostly spirits just leave one golem's body and go into another one. That would be a great way to respawn some of your enemies in the game. If you wanted to do something like that, ramping up the escalation effect. Like we don't need to destroy them. We just need an alternate. Our purpose is not to just fight something and kill it. It could be getting across the room. Maybe there's a long hallway and there's like 20 stone statues on each side, and the spirits of the elders in this tomb keep animating each of the statues one at a time. And maybe there's like 4 elder soldiers or something as spirits, and they're like, okay, listen, these spirits are going to keep going from statue to statue. All we need to do is just make it to the other end of the room. So I'll hold them off here while you guys go ahead. Which is always great to have. Yes, I know I'm squirreling, but having alternate winning conditions, right? Getting to the edge of the room, getting the crystal out of its housing, saving the refugees, finding the strange book, the specific book in the library, right? It's not we kill it and it kills us. Having alternate win conditions, I think, should always be making that triangle. I think is always a great thing to have. Also, if you want to incorporate golems in a game where you feel that they are far superior to your PC's abilities to fight them, it may not be a matter of kill or be killed, right? Yeah. Vince says, or on your server, you use elementals to put inside a golem core to animate them. Yeah, it goes on to say you could also use flying machines from castles in the sky that look like dragonflies. Yeah, absolutely. A fire elemental inside of an iron golem, hell yeah. Or what have you. Oh, hell, that's right. Hellboy the Golden Army had them in there. What a great Guillermo del Toro's image of that. The mystical, I guess you call it the bazaar, the back alley or something like that. That's great. That is so awesome. Rickard, what's going on there, man? Oh, don't apologize for that. We're still talking about our golems and such. But you could, first of all, what mission do the golems have, right? The goblin market, was that what it's called? Oh my goodness. How original. Just each of the different, I'm going to say the word alien, although the mystical creatures that live there. What a great scene. Because in your head, you're like, who are they? Very much, to me, it very much reminded me of the Star Wars cantina, where you have all the aliens there and you want to ask questions about them, but it's just in the background because they're just part of the story. Yeah, I love that. But if you want to incorporate golems into the game, they don't have to just be, oh, I'm activated, I have to kill everything. It could be, a golem does the chest push on a character, throws them out of the door, slams the door shut, and goes back to standing in front of it with its, giant brass, two-handed claymore or something, right? It's, listen, you can't come in here, get the hell out. I'm going to kick you in the chest, and then I'm going to go back to standing in front. Golems could just be there to capture enemies. You're a criminal. I'm going to grab you and throw some cuffs on you and drag you back to the prison, right? It doesn't necessarily mean golems have to, once activated, have to kill. Yeah. None shall pass. Yes. You fools, run. Yeah. Yeah, Rickard says, any talk of mechanical carriages with construct horses as part of the carriage framework? Yes. Yeah. Somebody had to bring it up. Vince brought it up. Yes, someone had to bring that up too. Mechanical carriages, we talked about mechanical living spaces, doors, chairs, tables. Yeah. Oh. Yes, yeah, you were so right. Yeah. Flee, you fools. Yes, get your quotes right. You're so right there, because I believe everyone says run, but it was always flee. Yeah, there's a lot of misquoted quotes that are commonly quoted that are misquoted in their quotes. Is it fly? Fly, you fools! Don't make me pull this. Yeah, Rickard says, or Steamworks in general. Yeah, we didn't really. There are many. We didn't talk about what powers golems in your world, and you don't have to pick one. It's not like there's It's well, we all know they could have used the Eagles and the movie would have been 15 minutes long, but whatever. Uh, yeah. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Thank you, Tesla Ranger. Yeah, none shall pass is not from that. But the idea is that you, whatever powers the golems could be the thing that is the clue that tells the players how to defeat them. So iron golems powered by heat, earth elementals maybe powered by soul stones. I don't know, clay golems powered by the religious symbols in their chests or things, steam, um, whether it's powered by steam or the medieval version of diesel fuel or whatever have you in the games. Maybe the iron golems are spewing out. They've got you throw coal in their chest and close the hatch, and there's as they walk along, their little top thing is spewing out blackened smoke or something like that if they're really mechanical. So yeah. Alcohol fuel. Yeah, depending. Maybe it's necessary to find the tanks that refuel them, and maybe there's an alchemist that is able to create the concoctions that fuel them, which might be another way to defeat them, or at least limit their abilities. Maybe maybe the PCs fight the golems while some other players sneak around to destroy the warehouses that have the fuel for them and sabotage or something like that. So yeah, absolutely. The Eagles should not transport the ring. I hear you. I hear you. I know. The Mordor has flying creatures. Yes, I know. But that's the joke, right? That I always thought the movie could have been 5 minutes long if Elrond didn't just push the ring instead of letting what's his face put the ring on his fingers. Like, dude, you're going in right now. Like, and it's funny how the elves are like, the minute push came to shove, they were like, we gotta go. Yeah, it's the age of man. It's time for, we can't stick around. Dead Man says, Lord of the Rings used "you shall not pass." Yeah. Bye. Harry, what's going on? Scroll with the symbol of life in Hebrew. True, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm gonna go back to it. I love if you want to add riddles and puzzles into your game and without having the locked gate. I absolutely feel I'm not going to listen, Vince. Don't make me butcher German because I'm terrible at pronouncing. I'm terrible at pronouncing pronunciations, let alone pronouncing German. So don't make me do that. But there is the idea that sorry, Vince, I'm not picking, as a matter of fact, but there is the idea of like Harry bringing up the symbol of life in Hebrew, that if you really want to incorporate riddles and puzzles into your world without using a locked gate or locked door, using golems and constructs is a great way to do it, right? I'm going to squirrel a little bit here. The locked gate idea is that you have an adventure. The PCs come upon a locked door, a place that they cannot cross unless they solve the riddle or figure out the puzzle. And what happens is some players just do not want to figure these things out, right? They're just like, listen, can we open a door or not? I don't want to know what walks on 4 legs and 2 legs and 3 legs, right? I don't want to know what follows me around all day and disappears at night and weighs nothing but can be as big as a mountain. Like, I don't want to figure that out. But there's other players who love that kind of thing, and you have to modulate that. At the same time, you don't want to stop the game and grind it to a halt. You want to give the players a puzzle or riddle and still let the adventure go on. PCs who are trying to figure out how to, say, learn the command word to stop one or more golems or to get past a certain region can still fight the golems while other PCs in the background are like, oh, he meant shadow. Yes. Follows me around, doesn't weigh anything, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, he meant man, walks around on 4s, then 2, then 3. Right. Oh, the age of man. Ah, I get it now, and still go along in the story. So if someone tries to decipher the glyph or the rune that represents life or justice, or I don't know, Dr. McNasty or whatever on the chest of these golems, then they can still figure out, one player who's like, I'm going to take my axe and cut things down. The other player's like, I'm not standing in front of army of golems, can still have fun. Your adventure can still go on. So I like that. Tesla Ranger says, can you unmute Vince long enough to pronounce that? Vince isn't in the Discord, but if he is able to pop in a Discord, I'll do that. Now, no one will hear him in the live stream. So yes, so I have no problem doing that at all. Rika says, off again, but I shall leave you with wall relief that can come off the walls to form various functions. Going back to the carriage as an example, I like the idea of the like a wall relief, a bas relief carving. It's the bas relief where it's not a fully 3-dimensional, meaning you see the image of, let's say, an individual, you see their front, but you don't see their back. So you could have bas reliefs carved into city walls of different things, whether they're human beings or animals or even carriages, birds or something that are able to come to life and reach out, whether they are able to separate from the wall or they remain in the wall. I think that's a great idea for living things and constructs. And again, you can have a super high detail, a high fidelity golem, considering how well people are able to construct and carve inanimate objects, even in the past. So I think that would be really great. Vince says, I personally would like them to have more rules. I'm going to Discord, downloading Discord currently for my PC, and more details. Golems are very boring if used raw. I definitely agree with that because I like the idea of an immortal royal family that has put their souls inside of golems and they're still alive, right? There could be ancestors that are, the noble prince beseeches his ancestors in the room filled with a dozen and a half of here, let me unmute you there. There we go. Yeah, what's going he's able to what the hell? Yeah, Vince is in the for those who of course cannot hear him, Vince is in the Discord. So the Discord is over at Fantasy Grounds College. So if you prefer to listen to the audio, you can go over to Fantasy Grounds College, join the Discord. Over on the left, slide down to the boiler room. That's where we all hang out at. Yeah, Vince. And yeah, unfortunately, I can't leave you in my audio because while I don't mind talking to you personally, no one else can hear you. So that's why everyone's muted. No problem. Thanks, dude. And also, again, for those who love having these long chats, I also stay in the Discord for another like 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the live chats, so live streams. So if you want to do that and hang out a little bit and meet these other people that make me look brilliant, you can do that as well. Yeah, I do think they're a bit boring because the golems that are given the artwork for the golems, many of us feel like they're very, it's like a very raw form of them. But if you just use your Google Foo and type in statues, there's some highly detailed statues out there, all around the world in all types of shapes and sizes. I love the I'm sure this is an incorrect form, but I love the the Indian and Eastern Asian statues, the multi-armed Kali type of statues, and elephant-headed ones, and the Buddhas. There's all different kinds of Buddhas, like laughing Buddhas and lying down Buddhas and angry Buddhas that are around, and many of them could represent for any number of reasons in your world why they are golems. The Easter Island statues, excuse me, could be golems as well. And of course, we're not limited to their size. They can be 3 inches tall. They could be 300 feet tall. So, um, and what they're made out of: stone, marble, gold, quartz, uh, iron, bronze and brass, copper, aluminum, stainless steel, as was mentioned before. So yeah. Harry Shore says in a game they were dissing the power of a goddess. It told the player he felt something land on top of his head. Note said, "Next one is a brick." Yeah, that's true. I love the idea of golems being activated by divine intervention. The instead of the gods coming down, there's a oh Tesla says then there's the weeping angel statues. Yep, absolutely. Who uh, um, uh, Statues don't need to be walking around and going, "You're evil, you don't need to pass, get out of here," blah blah blah, and destroy them. They could be avatars of information. Um, they may not move from their pedestals, but they may interact with the PCs on a very intellectual level, even if they are pre-programmed to do so. Right. So, for example, they could just be there. A religious character could be there talking to a statue of representing one of the gods' many forms or something, and that's how the cleric is able to regain their spells in game. They beseech the statue, and the statue comes to life, and the other parishioners are like, "Oh, wow, it came to life for them." And that maybe the statue kneels down. It's like 30 feet tall, kneels down, and touches the chest, points to the chest, or touches the head of the PC, and saying, "You have done great works, but the people that travel with you, are distracting your soul and your mission. Be aware that you must remain focused. Maybe they will come to us, maybe not," or something, right? I mean, how cool would that be? And what a great way to embrace like a high magic setting, or embrace the background of the PCs. The wizard character that goes back to the covenant of, or convent or coven of wizards, where they first learn their magic, and the golem is the butler in the castle or tower or something, and is like, "Welcome back, master, Thalgith," or something, right? "Oh, why, thank you there, sir. Here, take my cloak." "Yes, master. I will get for you your favorite drink. It is hot chai tea, am I not correct?" "Yes, it's been many years. I'm surprised you remembered." "I remember everything." You could have something silly like that, and just have like this weird interaction by incorporating them into your world. And then you've already foreshadowed that they already exist in the world already, right? So when the PCs come upon more of them, they're like, it's just another thing. Then it says you could make some super cool concept, like imagine modular golems that can add body parts from other golems. Yeah, and I'll form the head, right? They could have different mechanical limbs. Future Friday, that's definitely a thing, right? High tech, having a razor blade Megazord. you yeah. Dude, you could definitely have like a golem with a spinning blade in one hand and a shield in another hand, and a energy expulsion thing, whether it's a medieval rod, like I mentioned before, a spear from Apollo, and it shoots fire or something, or a staff of Zeus and it shoots lightning out or whatever. So yeah, reskinning stuff, making them fit into your world, definitely, absolutely. And there's also little, well, we'll talk about this with world building and stuff, right? Where you know, how do people react to these things being alive in the world? Do they embrace them? Are they partially or wholly members of their families? Or do they each have a separate, their own personalities? Are they sentient in any way? Or are they much like Tony Stark, Iron Man's um, uh, mechanical helpers, right? Do they have names and respond, but they're just kind of like only 50% individuals, you know? It all depends. So definitely we're going to continue our talk about constructs and golems and things like that in the future. Tomorrow is World Building Wednesday, which means we're going to definitely build a world where these things exist in large form, and maybe even change society in many ways. Maybe they help build the great cities that exist in your world. So we'll hit upon that. So guys, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great one. I'll see you later.